My name is Michael, and I need to share something that's been weighing heavily on my heart. My twin sisters deliberately tampered with my pregnant wife's medication because we didn't choose their names for our daughter. Now, my mother, Diana, is trying to downplay the whole incident, even though it put Sarah in the hospital. I've been a long-time reader of this forum, but this is my first time posting. Background. Let me get straight to the point. My wife Sarah, who's a pediatrician, and I are expecting our second child. What should be a joyful time has turned into a nightmare because of my family's reaction to our daughter's name. We announced it at my sister's house, and now they're waging what I can only describe as an emotional warfare against us. I come from a conservative suburban community outside Boston, where family traditions run deep. My parents, like many in our area, started young. Not quite 16, but 19. My mom was supposed to be starting pre-med, but life had other plans. They made it work for a while, juggling college classes and a baby, but eventually the pressure became too much. They divorced and both remarried. My dad settled down with his second wife, and I remained his only child. Mom's life took a more colorful path. A second marriage, another divorce, coming out, and now she's engaged to Patricia, a head nurse at Boston Memorial. During her second marriage, she had my twin sisters, Emily and Emma. Yes, those are pseudonyms for privacy reasons. I love my sisters deeply, despite our age gap. With both their parents essentially absent, I stepped into more of a father figure role than a brother. Working in medical device sales allowed me to stay local after college, so I was there for all their milestone moments. First crushes, first dates, even their father-daughter dances. We've always had what I thought was a solid relationship. But something changed when Sarah entered the picture. Sarah's brilliant. She's the kind of pediatrician who remembers every patient's name and favorite cartoon character. We met through a mutual colleague at a hospital conference, and it felt like the universe was giving us a second chance. You see, we'd known each other briefly in medical school before she transferred to complete her residency. 3 years ago, we got married, and last year, we welcomed our son, Lucas. Again, not his real name, but you understand. We hadn't planned on having another baby so quickly, but we were thrilled when we found out. Our family seemed excited too. Well, most of them. My sisters adore Lucas. He's their perfect little nephew who can do no wrong. Sarah, however, is a different story. In their eyes, she's never quite good enough. Family dynamics. I've always been careful about who I introduced to my sisters. As someone who basically helped raise them, I wanted to set a good example. But looking back, maybe I was too protective, because they've developed this possessive attitude about my relationships. They've disliked every woman I've dated, but their treatment of Sarah has been particularly harsh. Sarah, being the compassionate doctor she is, tried to understand their perspective. They're protective because you've been more than a brother to them, she'd say with that patient smile she usually reserves for anxious parents in her pediatric practice. She never pushed them, always maintained her professional composure, even attended all the traditional family ceremonies during our wedding. When Lucas was born, I thought things would change. Logically, they should have embraced the woman who brought their beloved nephew into the world, right? But that's not how it played out. Sarah continued being gracious, letting them visit Lucas whenever they wanted, despite their barely concealed hostility. The name reveal. The real breaking point came during what should have been a joyful family dinner. We hosted everyone: Sarah's parents, my mom and Patricia, and the twins. We hadn't planned on having another baby shower, but we wanted to do a gender reveal party later. First, though, we decided to have an intimate name reveal with just the immediate family. This was particularly meaningful because of Sarah's personal history. During her residency, she lost her younger brother in a tragic car accident. He was just starting his medical internship, full of promise and dreams. The accident left Sarah with both physical and emotional scars, chronic headaches, and a deep sense of loss that she channels into her work with children. That's why choosing our daughter's name meant so much. Just as we had honored her brother's memory with Lucas's name, we wanted to continue this tribute. Looking back, I can still see the tears in Margaret's eyes, Sarah's mother, when we first revealed Lucas's name. For her parents, it was like keeping a part of their son's memory alive. The confrontation. Emily and Sandy's reaction to our name choice was unexpected. At first, they sat in silence while Sarah's parents wiped away tears of joy. My mom and Patricia seemed touched, though they were more interested in trying to guess the baby's gender. But then my sisters excused themselves to the bathroom, a 20-minute disappearance that should have been my first warning sign. When they finally returned, they asked to speak with me outside. Standing in the parking lot of the restaurant, they launched into what I can only describe as an emotional ambush. "We get that you named Lucas after Sarah's brother," Emily started, her voice trembling. "It was sweet, really. That's why we were so excited about this baby. We thought it would be our turn." I stood there, completely bewildered. "Your turn?" I remember asking, though I already had a sinking feeling about where this was heading. That's when they unleashed years of pent-up resentment, claiming Sarah had been poisoning me against them since my third year of medical sales, when I chose a conference with her over their spring break plans. The restaurant scene. By this point, Emma was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, while Emily looked like she was barely holding it together. As someone who spent years in medical sales, I'm used to handling tense situations, but this caught me completely off guard. I tried to defuse the situation, explaining that naming our children wasn't some kind of turn-based game. "You're both still here," I said, gesturing vaguely toward the restaurant where our family was waiting. "You're young, healthy nursing students. You'll have your own children to name someday. This isn't about favoritism. It's about honoring Sarah's brother's memory." We eventually went back inside after they fixed their makeup, but the damage was done. Sarah and I decided to end the evening early. On the drive home, Sarah, ever the rational doctor, suggested they might just be feeling emotional and needed time to process. But what happened next proved she was being too optimistic. The social media attack. Within hours, my sisters had contacted every cousin in our extended family. Not only did they leak our baby's name, which we were planning to announce at the gender reveal, but they somehow managed to paint me as the villain. My phone started buzzing with messages from relatives, all criticizing me for showing blatant favoritism towards Sarah's family. The hospital incident. I've always prided myself on keeping my cool. You have to when you're dealing with doctors and hospital administrators all day. But right now, sitting on these hospital stairs, typing this on my phone, I'm beyond furious. My mom just called to tell me why my pregnant wife has been in the hospital for the past 2 days. My sisters, 2 nursing students who should know better, thought it would be funny to switch Sarah's medication as a prank because they were upset about the baby's name. I had to stop typing for a moment because even seeing those words makes my blood boil. Let me break down what happened. Saturday afternoon was our gender reveal party. Despite their recent behavior, we decided to let Emily and Emma attend, partly because we'd already printed the place cards, and partly because they'd seemed to calm down. Sarah, showing her usual grace under pressure, thought uninviting them would only create more drama. The party seemed perfect at first. They behaved well, spent time chatting with family, and playing with Lucas, or so we thought. Now I know they snuck away during the party, went into our master bedroom, and swapped Sarah's prenatal vitamins with another medication. I can't specify what they replaced it with, but it's a medication that can cause severe reactions in pregnant women: nausea, visual disturbances, dizziness, and other concerning symptoms. The medical emergency. By 9 o'clock, after everyone had left and we were finally having a quiet dinner, Sarah started showing severe symptoms. As a pediatrician, she immediately knew something was wrong. When she became so dizzy she couldn't stand, my medical sales background kicked in. I knew we needed emergency care immediately. I rushed her to Boston Memorial, where no one could initially determine the cause of her sudden symptoms. Then my mom called. According to her, when she told my sisters that Sarah was in the they started acting suspiciously nervous. She questioned them until they confessed, which is how I finally learned what Sarah had ingested and could inform her doctors. The hospital stay. The medical team kept Sarah under observation overnight after the initial symptoms subsided. Given her condition as a high-risk pregnancy, she's still dealing with chronic headaches from her accident. They ran additional tests to ensure our baby was safe. Sarah's currently asleep upstairs, recovering from what should have been a joyful celebration turned nightmare. We've thrown out all the prenatal vitamins from her pill organizer, the ones my sisters tampered with. As someone who works with medical equipment and understands the importance of medical safety, I'm struggling to process this betrayal. There's a vast difference between disliking someone and deliberately jeopardizing the health of a pregnant doctor and her unborn child, all because you didn't like the name we chose for our baby. The decision. After careful consideration, Sarah and I have decided to cut contact with my sisters. In my years of reading similar stories here, I've seen no contact suggested countless times, and I used to think it was an extreme response. It feels drastic, but given what they did, it's actually a relatively mild reaction. This isn't about punishment. I'm not even filing a report against them, though as a medical professional, Sarah would have every right to do so. I'm simply protecting my wife, whom they've been subtly tormenting for years while I remained oblivious. I don't care that family members are flooding my phone with messages saying it wasn't their intention or they've learned their lesson. They deliberately poisoned a pregnant physician as a prank, retaliating against something that wasn't even an offense. The truth emerges. Through my mother, I learned the full scope of their prank. They weren't even trying to switch Sarah's prenatal vitamins. They were attempting to tamper with her prescription pain medication, the one she takes for chronic headaches from the accident that took her brother's life. They thought they were just going to make her feel weird, but they switched the wrong pills. My mother, Diana, shared all this, perhaps thinking it would somehow make things better. She's still in contact with me, mainly because she's the one who exposed their scheme. But as Sarah's due date approaches, I can feel my mother's resolve weakening. She keeps bringing up how good they've been as aunts to Lucas, how much they love him, and how they never meant to cause real harm. She doesn't seem to understand that as a head nurse, Patricia should be especially horrified by this violation of medical ethics. I've been shutting down these comments, but there's a new complication. I suspect my mother has found this account, or someone has shown it to her. My concern is that this is becoming another avenue for my family to attack Sarah. Although Diana mentioned Sarah's upcoming medical checkup, something we've only told Sarah's mother about, I initially tried to ignore it, wanting to focus on supporting my wife through these final weeks of pregnancy. The medical records violation. The mystery of how my mother knew about Sarah's appointment solved itself when I opened Instagram to block my sisters. Right there in my feed was a photo of my aunt and uncle on a double date with my mother and Patricia. Everyone was in their work clothes, and Patricia's hospital ID badge was clearly visible. She now works at the same hospital where Sarah receives her prenatal care. The pieces fell into place. Though Patricia works in a different department, she has access to patient records. There are really only two possibilities. Either Sarah's mother suddenly started confiding in my mother despite their minimal interaction, or Patricia, a senior nurse whose fiancé is desperate to reconcile her son with his sisters, accessed Sarah's medical records without authorization. One scenario is significantly more probable than the other. It explains how my mother knew intimate details about Sarah's condition and why she remained unusually calm during Sarah's hospital stay, despite her typical anxiety about her grandchildren's health. The confrontation with Diana. I've always believed in direct communication, especially given my role in medical device sales, where clarity saves lives. So I kept it simple. I went to talk to my mother while Patricia was at work, and the twins were at nursing school. Diana was working from home and seemed thrilled when I showed up with lunch. The conversation started naturally enough with questions about Sarah and the baby. I cut straight to the point, asking if she was asking because she wanted to know, or because she already knew through Patricia's unauthorized access to medical records. She tried claiming I must have mentioned the appointment, but when I pointed out that was impossible, she finally admitted the truth. That's what family does, she insisted, as if violating medical privacy laws was somehow an act of love. Patricia wasn't looking at a stranger's records. This is family. Besides, if you called more often, we wouldn't need to check. She then seamlessly transitioned to defending the twins, claiming I was being too harsh since no real harm was done. According to her, they had learned their lesson, and my continued silence was becoming embarrassing. Taking action. After leaving my mother's house, I went straight home to Sarah. As medical professionals, we knew exactly what needed to be done. First, we contacted the hospital to file an official complaint against Patricia for accessing private medical records. The hospital administration assured us they could track who had viewed Sarah's files and would investigate immediately. Then we documented everything, every incident of the twins' behavior towards Sarah since we started dating, culminating in the medication swap. We posted it all on Facebook, tagging every relative who had been criticizing us for punishing my poor sisters and prioritizing my wife. I don't know if Patricia will lose her nursing license for violating HIPAA, but I do know that several family members have called to apologize. The social status my sisters cultivated so carefully through nursing school is crumbling, and honestly, as someone who works in healthcare, I believe that's appropriate for people who would violate both medical ethics and family trust. Final update. Hello again. I'm Michael, the guy whose nursing student sisters poisoned his pregnant wife because we didn't name our baby after them. Let me start with the good news. I'm now the father of two beautiful, healthy children, Lucas and our precious daughter, Olivia. My incredible wife, Sarah, is nearing the end of her maternity leave, savoring every moment with our daughter before returning to her pediatric practice. Now, for the updates you've been waiting for. Remember our two-step plan? It had more significant consequences than we anticipated. Let's start with Patricia, my mother's former fiancée. The hospital's investigation quickly confirmed she had accessed Sarah's records without authorization. Given the severity of the HIPAA violation, she lost her nursing license, was terminated from her position, and faced substantial fines. Unsurprisingly, she wasn't keen on marrying someone whose son had reported her professional misconduct. My mother, Diana, still maintains we overreacted, and she's now joined my sisters in believing Sarah has poisoned my mind against them. Speaking of my sisters, that Facebook post where I detailed their behavior reached further than expected. It made its way to their nursing school's administration. Given the severity of their actions, attempting to harm a pregnant woman while studying to become healthcare professionals, they were expelled from the program. While they're intelligent enough to pursue other careers, this ethical violation will follow their academic records. Epilogue. Sarah and I are thriving as a family of 4. Between my medical sales rounds and her pediatric patients, we're busy but fulfilled. Yes, I'm getting less sleep between diaper changes and late-night feedings, but there's a piece in our home that was missing before. I've received messages suggesting I've ruined the lives of 4 women over just a prank and a mother who was just looking out for her son. But as healthcare professionals, both Sarah and I understand that medical ethics aren't optional even with family. Access to medical records and medication safety aren't privileges to be abused for personal vendettas. For those wondering about legal consequences, yes, we did press charges against my sisters. The court found them guilty of a misdemeanor, resulting in a $2,000 fine each plus community service. Some might think this harsh, but as someone who works in healthcare, I believe there must be consequences for deliberately endangering a pregnant woman and her unborn child. Looking at Sarah now, caring for our patients while being an amazing mother to Lucas and Olivia, I know we made the right choice. Sometimes protecting your family means standing up to those who would harm them, even if they're family themselves.